Well, thank you for that very warm WA Misso's welcome. I know it's United voice. I'm not that dumb. Misso's to me always were, always will be United voice because we're united as representatives of the working people of Australia. I begin by acknowledging the first Australians on whose land we meet and cultures we celebrate as the oldest continuing cultures in human history. And to Mark McGowan, where are you, Mark? I lost you before. You're sitting somewhere. Our state Labor leader, wave. He was here. Thank you for greeting me. And can I just say, leading a great state Labor team. I'd also acknowledge the National President of United Voice, Michael Crosby, the National Secretary, Louise Tarrant, the WA's Nina Devlin, the West Australian Secretary, Carolyn Smith. Also believe we're joined by my parliamentary colleague today, Senator Sue Lyons. Sue. WA Parliament's Dave Kelly. And a whole bunch of really important people I haven't mentioned, so to them as well. Let me start by saying I love Misso's. And therefore United Voice by another name. And the reason I love Misso's and what you do is that you represent the heart and soul of Australian working families. Every one of you. And the sectors which were just mentioned before are the heart and soul of Australian national life. If we don't have decent aged care, we're not being decent Australians. If we don't have decent childcare, we're not being decent Australians. If we don't have the decent maintenance of our school facilities with the work, the important work that cleaners do, we're not being decent Australians. So the work that you do across this sector, and every one of you, is part of the decency of Australian life. And people working in these sectors deserve decent pay and conditions. We said before that governments matter, and we've just been through some examples of how governments really matter, whether it's in terms of the aged care sector, the childcare sector, or the other sectors represented here today. And these are the big choices for Australians. You've got a view out there on the part of some that governments come, governments go, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day who's in government. It really does matter. It really does matter. Who sets the rules for what is fair and reasonable for all Australians? And that's the contest in which we are engaged. We're engaged in a big battle of ideas, a set of ideas which says that we in Australia believe fundamentally in values which hold up freedom for all Australians, a fair go for all Australians, and compassion for those who need the helping hand of all of us through the agency of government. They're the values of the Labor movement. They're the values of the union movement. They're the values of the Parliamentary Labor Party. They're the values which I've held near and dear to my heart since I was a kid growing up in rural Queensland, where I knew all the cleaners by name at my local school. Wonderful people. Now, there's another view about government, another view about values, another view held by those who would seek to be the government of Australia. Their three core values are me, myself and I. Me, myself and I, in that order, by the way. And you know something? Ultimately, it's a pretty selfish view of Australia. It simply says that I'll look after number one and the rest of you can go and get lost. Or look after yourself. And throw you to the magic of the marketplace. Now, I've seen a bit of what happens with that around the world. I've seen a few countries around the world over the years. And you know something? When you don't have basic protections for basic pay and basic conditions, then I've seen some pretty ugly outcomes where people who work in these sectors are not treated decently. And so they're the two core sets of ideas which are up against each other as we wrestle for the future government of Australia. It's a very important contest. And it's not just a debate about values or just a debate about ideas, it's a debate about what we do on the ground that makes a difference to the people who depend on your services and, frankly, those of you who work to provide those services as well. That's what it's about. And as a government, we've been out there making a difference, making Australia a better place. I just looked at some figures before in terms of what we have done across the great state of Western Australia more broadly. And it is a very proud record. When I look, for example, of what we have done, let's just pick education. This is a huge investment by the National Government of Australia into the future of WA kids. I take that pretty seriously. I always have, and I always will do, because our kids will use the opportunities given to them through education to carve out their future and the future of our state and our nation. It hangs on their shoulders and what we provide them. So we can say that that's one of our values, a fair go for all kids, but it doesn't mean a fig unless we do something about it. So what have we been doing about it? Here in WA, we've invested $1.8 billion in building 530 new classrooms, 277 new school libraries, 199 new multi-purpose facilities, 37 new science and language centres for our kids in just the space of the last 5 years or so. That's what a Labor government does. We make a difference. And for those of you who are school cleaners or education assistants, and you go around the schools of WA and you look at the smiles on the kids' faces as they go into their brand spanking new library, and they're there at lunchtime, connected and wired for sound on the most advanced education technologies available. You know it's making a difference in their lives. That's what Labor governments do. That's what this Labor government's been doing. If you're in the secondary schools, you have noticed that across WA we've been investing to put in nearly 100,000 new computers into the high schools. So that the kids of the high schools, whether they come from poor areas or wealthy areas, all have the same opportunities for computer-based learning, because that's where the future of education lies. That's also what Labor governments do. And we're doing it. When I look at the trades, you may have sons and daughters, you may have kids that you know in your neighbourhood who don't want to go off and become a university professor. They want to know how to be a first-class chippy. They want to know how to be a first-class welder. They want to know how to do graphic design. They want to know how to do all those things. Well, yeah, we provided computers in schools, but we've also, in WA, been in the business of investing $150 million to build 42 new trades training centres supporting our secondary schools right across the states. It's not just the kids who go to university who should be supported, it's the kids who want to pursue the trades who should be supported. Girls and boys, to make sure they've got the best places to learn, and that's what Australian Labor governments have been doing here in WA. And if we could possibly get WA to sign on to the Better Schools Plan for Australia, if we could possibly get WA to sign on to the Better Schools Plan for Western Australia, and I say this directly to Premier Colin Barnett, I've got to say you would have an additional $920 million investment in the schools of Western Australia over the next 6 years, and that's what Australian Labor government should be doing. So it's not just a discussion about values, it's not just a discussion about ideas, about fairness. We actually do this stuff. We actually make it happen. Bricks and mortar, new libraries, new classrooms, new digital whiteboards, new trades training centres, computers in schools for all kids, poor or rich. But on top of that, investing in better schools, better education outcomes, better teaching for all the kids of Western Australia. That's what Australian Labor governments do. I looked at the record in health as well. Since we've invested $9.15 billion, a record in the WA hospital and health infrastructure. A huge investment, unprecedented in the history of the Commonwealth. We've been investing $150 million for new emergency departments in our hospitals, $215 million for subacute care. We've invested $43 million for primary health care infrastructure, including 6 GP super clinics. We've invested nearly $60 million for healthcare support in terms of general practice after-hours grants and for Medicare locals. $51 million for regional cancer centres. These are the basic things that make a difference out there, ensuring that we've got the best health and hospital facilities available. We designed Medicare. We've just designed and implemented disability care. That's what Australian Labor government does. And so we got our sleeves rolled up across education, across health, also in the stuff that you drive on every day, the roads of WA. Have you seen all the work that's underway at the moment? So much of that is our investment, investing billions of dollars into the road infrastructure system of this state. Whether it's the Gateway WA project, whether it's other projects like the Great Northern Highway, the North West Coastal Highway, the Swan Valley Bypass, the Perth Public Transport Package, the sinking of the railway line through Perth CBD. All that's because we believe as an Australian government we should be partnering with the state governments of Australia to make sure you get the best by way of the road infrastructure that you need to drive on every day. That's what Australian Labor governments do as well. We're into practical stuff, doing stuff, making it work. And then, for the infrastructure for tomorrow, we're also investing in something called the National Broadband Network. It's designed to make sure that every household in Australia, every small business, wherever you are, has access to world-class broadband. Broadband will be what, for Australia's economic future, what the railways were 100 years ago. You know when the towns all competed to see who would get the railway next? Well, the new competition today is who gets broadband next, and the rest of the world is in danger of leaving Australia behind. So what we want, every household, every suburb, every town, every community, every small business linked to one of the fastest, best, most reliable broadband systems in the world. Why? Not just to watch a few movies. It's all about, frankly, building the businesses of tomorrow, making sure that you're getting the best healthcare online, the education services online, building new small businesses to provide new jobs for your kids. That's what Australian Labor governments do. We build infrastructure, including the infrastructure of tomorrow. And I'm proud of our records of achievement there. And when I look across WA, we have 137,000 premises under construction as we speak. That's what Australian Labor governments do. Now, you guys as a union have been pretty active as well, I gather. A few things here and there, giving us a bit of curry when we need it, giving others more curry when they need it, and hopefully a bit extra besides. But that's all part and part of the partnership that we have between the political arm of Labor and the Labor movement, to make sure we're getting the message clear and we're getting the results right. So for those of you who've been behind the Clean Start Fair Deal for Cleaners campaign launched in 2006, congratulations. You've got some real outcomes and some real winning fair. More recently, the Big Steps campaign. Who's been behind the Big Steps campaign? I've got to say, your voice has been heard loud and clear across the corridors in Canberra. Can't walk anywhere without running into one of you folks. They hunt you down. You go to the gents, they hunt you down. It's pretty impressive, you lot. You don't leave a single rabbit down a burrow, do you? Off you go. There's a politician. Got him. Well, congratulations, we heard. Well, in fact, some of us just ran in fear. But you see, childcare is so much of what the future is about. Stand back for a moment and look at the future of our economy. We talk about it often in terms of the three Ps. Productivity, participation, and population. Making sure that we've got the most productive and competitive workforce in the world. And that's why we're so determined to ensure that the Better Schools Plan is implemented. Also, to ensure that we have a strongly growing population. And that's why we depend so much on an orderly migration system. But on participation, we want to see more women, not less, in the workforce, to boost our workforce participation rates. Because that's so much of our ability to afford what we need to do in the future as an economy. Look around the world, the workforce participation rates in the Western advanced economies is starting to slide as we have the ageing of the population. So what do you do about that? Well, you have more people coming in through the orderly migration system, keeps the country young, the idea is fresh, I'm all for that. You have a more productive workforce by bringing in the technology factor, like the broadband network that I mentioned before, I'm all for that. But you need to do something on participation as well. And so it means if we're going to have more women working, we need world-class childcare. World-class childcare. I get that. Fraser and I have been out there raising 3 kids, and let me tell you, I remember what it was like when there was not much around. You know, scrabbling between one family daycare centre and the other, and trying to make the hours work, and all the tensions that means for a young family, as we were then, with little kids growing up, and Therese building up a small business, me off working, and just the normal tensions which families have right around the country in our experience 20, 25 years ago. But I remember it very, very clearly. Whose time was it to get up to change the nappy? Mind you, we've got a granddaughter now, so it's back again. So she's a delight. But the Early Years Quality Fund has got something really to commend it. If you look at what we've been doing in childcare, we've increased the childcare rebate. Big change, big initiative. I put it forward in the 2007 election and we did it. But we've also been on about improving the quality of childcare, improving flexible childcare options and the availability of childcare places for families. A key component of the Quality Early Childhood Service is a skilled and qualified workforce. And as part of the National Quality Framework, all long day care centres must meet new qualification requirements as of 1 January next year. Half the staff attaining are working towards Cert 3, half the staff attaining are working towards a diploma. The requirement for a 4-year degree qualified early childhood teacher to make sure that all of our kids in our childcare are developing pre-literacy, pre-numeracy skills, so when they hit the classrooms of the school system, no one's falling behind. That's what it's about. But none of this happens by magic. None of it happens unless you're out there assisting and supporting the process through what governments do. Low pay in the childcare sector has made attracting and retaining qualified staff difficult. That's just a reality. The $300 million Early Years Quality Fund will support quality outcomes for children by assisting the early childhood services to attract and retain qualified, hardworking professionals. The Early Years Quality Fund will provide funding directly to eligible services for over 2 years to supplement wage increases of $3 per hour, $114 a week for Cert 3 qualified educators, with proportional wage increases applying across the existing classification scale, with higher increases for diploma and degree qualified educators. I've got some good news for you. The grants process opened on Tuesday. They don't. I know you're not missos, I know you don't have voice, I know you know that. I'm telling those guys that. So I've got news for everybody out there, beyond those in this room. Geez, they muck up the front here, don't they? More discipline in the ranks is necessary in this. Anyway, off you go. I'm from Queensland, I roll with the punches. Grants opened on Tuesday, folks. And there's been strong demand. Grants are being delivered on a rolling basis, eligible services having to demonstrate affordability for families through fee restraint limited to actual cost, increased fee transparency requirement for services, and a range of other things as well. This is the product, this fund is the product, and the reforms associated with it is the product of your campaign, the Big Steps campaign. Thank you for your work. So friends, one and all, this has been a great partnership in what we've done in the childcare sector. For cleaners, it's been a strong partnership in terms of what we've done there. And the work we've also done in the aged care sector and elsewhere as well, which I won't go to in my remarks today. But all of this, folks, gets put at risk and in peril if Liberals become the next government of Australia. It's just the truth of it. I mean, this is not just a political statement. Remember, this mob brought in work choices. Remember that? Remember that the mob who brought in work choices, well, 2/3 of them are in the alternative cabinet of Australia today under Tony Abbott. Mr Abbott described work choices as one of the greatest achievements of the Howard government. Now he wants to try and sort of whitewash that from history as if he never said it. You know, with those guys, don't look at what they say, look at what they've done, and look at their DNA. This mob actually are not friends of working families. If they were ever friends of working families, then why the hell did they bring in work choices when they got the political chance to do so? So what we have done and secured together for United Voice and for your members and across the community really matters. Not just in having the achievements so far, but what we'll do together in the future as well. And we don't want to put that at risk. This country is made up of decent men and women and families like all of you represented here today. You're the fabric of Australian life. You're fabric of your community life. You're fabric of your school community life. The folks who actually keep the oldies not just properly provided for, but engage with them personally in the aged care facilities of Australia and in the nursing homes. And looking after our senior cits, our oldies, those who need real help and care, that's really important in humane work, and I respect and honour each of their contributions to Australia's life. So preserving this for the future, it's going to take effort. So when it comes to fighting this next election campaign, can I say to each and every one of you, we're going to need you in the trenches. Need you to fight hard to ensure that the gains that we have made for you, the decent working people of Australia, are kept, and we maintain an ability to do more with you in the future. That's what it's about. So street by street, trench by trench, suburb by suburb, polling booth by polling booth, campaign by campaign, whether it's in the federal division of Swan, whether it's in the federal division of Haslick, whether it's in other federal divisions where we're competing against the Liberals, we need you to be out there with heart and soul and mind and strength and determination to ensure that we return an Australian Labor government for the future. I thank you.